Hello everyone, I am Tacet, and today I'm going to be going over the Gems of War Tentacle Party event in which the Netherhound is added to the game. So we're just going to be going over a bunch of teams throughout the week, as well as just all the normal event stuff that we always do. So let's get into this Netherhound. Does come with brown-red, pretty useful trait stone, though I feel like I get a lot of them off of Explore 12 for Merskea, if you happen to farm there a lot, so you might not really need that many of this. However, the troop itself, you still probably want to get it upgraded. It's not really too good. It's basically underneath the categories of wolves. There's things like Winter Wolf, there's things like Dire Wolf, stuff like that. It's pretty much just the same kind of category of troop, just by a different name. And the fact that all of them do damage to their first enemy, as well as apply a Hunter's Mark to them. It's everything else that they have, which is basically unique on them. In this particular instance, it has a 100% chance to create 8 to 12 purple. I believe this is the only one of the wolves that actually has a 100% gem spawn, whereas the other ones, I believe, are percent chance, if I'm not mistaken. But overall, this thing is still going to be pretty good as far as the wolves are concerned. I would still say overall the Dire Wolf is still probably the best due to its really low mana cost and the fact that it can do 4 times potential skull damage. But overall, it's not bad. You still get the Hunter's Mark, you still get the damage, you get a nice gem spawn that for some events this week is probably going to be very useful. It also has a natural half mana start, so you don't need to worry about using it with something like Forest Guardian, which would a lot of the other ones you kind of do. But in this case, it already naturally has its half mana start. This does mean it's technically weaker with Forest Guardian. However, you'd probably never need to use it in this situation anyways, given that it just naturally has it now. But yeah, it is a nice little addition since it does get to do it for 6 mana cost, which is technically cheaper than a Dire Wolf. And it's just going to be overall pretty okay. Nothing really too special that you'd be spamming a lot. It's pretty much just ever so situationally going to be useful, probably this week, to be honest, just because you get to use the gem spawn for a couple events if you so choose, if you have no other options. But overall, I feel like this thing is just going to be dead content and not really worth playing around with much, as it's likely not going to be viable going into the future. Anyways, as far as event stuff this week, we do have some very useful bonuses. We have 10% to all Karakoth, 10% to all Daemons. This will be very useful given that multiple events this week will be utilizing these 10 to 20% that you'll be having, with most of it having 20%. As far as what we have for the troop, it is not going to be worth it. You only get souls. This is for PvP and Explore. You'd get much better value just from farming within Explore, within soul farming teams within Explore, and I would not really advise bother putting this thing in just for 40 additional souls. It is not going to be worth it compared to the time of just soul farming, so definitely worth completely avoiding this week as far as the bonus that you get for using the glory troop. Other than that, as far as the chest drop table, it is probably worth skipping this week. Next week's actually going to be pretty decent, but as far as what it of course is Karakoth, as it is a Karakoth week. So if we go ahead over there, there are a few noteworthy things to kind of just mention about it though. So if we just go over to the Karakoth, the main one that is worth mentioning, and probably the biggest one, is Zuul'goth is not in the drop table. He is only obtainable through crafting. You need 8 power orbs to go and get him, but there is 0% chance that you will get him through any of the event keys that you open. There's also a 0% chance that you would get him through raids, even though he theoretically is underneath that category of drop table, but he will not actually drop from it. This is mostly because he is exclusive only to Soulforge. So technically, the only mythic actually in the drop table is Vash'Dagon. As far as event keys this week, it is probably worth skipping. The other thing that's not in the drop table is Mizmer. So Mizmer and Zuul'goth are both not in. The only 2 things that are kind of worth maybe pulling for is Wall of Tentacles and Vash'Dagon. Wall of Tentacles if you don't have any, and Vash'Dagon mostly because Karakoth is a magic kingdom, and if you're not planning on going for Zuul'goth anytime soon, Vash'Dagon is pretty much the mythic you have to go for, so do consider pulling him if you're at that point in the game. However, Wall of Tentacles, if you have 0 copies of this, you might want to pick it up. It's going to be pretty useful to have at least 1 copy, if not more, this week, mostly because a lot of the game modes this week can end up utilizing it. Gains a bunch of armor boosted by Daemon allies, though this is not the relevant part. The relevant part of this troop is that it ends up gaining a 2 magic and 5 mana to all allies, with the main one being the 5 mana. You can basically go use this to mana generate, casting at a single time, assuming none of your troops have died, is a total of 15 mana accumulation for 10 mana cost. It's not too bad. It's one of the better mana generators that this kingdom has, so it's worth considering to have. Also, another thing that you can end up getting along the way if you do have 0 copies of it is Dark Troll. He'll be pretty useful this week in the fact that he combines with a lot of purple mana generators, and he gets to double the amount of purples plus an additional 3 while also having a soul gain, which later in the game is pretty much max capacity of souls in a single cast, so helps get a little bit extra souls. Another reason why you don't need to bother using that thing in your team, the little hound this week. A single Dark Troll cast, or even double of it, even if you're only in like mid games, pretty much full souls already, so ends up working out pretty well. But yeah, overall, probably a week worth skipping unless you truly need that Zuul'goth, the Vash'Dagon, or if you want the Wall of Tentacles for the events, I'd probably just skip on it, as next week's event key drop table is going to be pretty juicy, at least compared to this week anyways. Speaking of anyways, let's go head over to raids. So raids is kind of interesting this week in the fact that it is a Karakoth raids, and we have never had a Karakoth raids before. And what's kind of interesting about this is, of course, as many of you know, the whole thing of raids is that you basically have one big boss at the end that you basically have to kill, and you have 3 other things that you need to go and deal with. But the main thing is that Zuul'goth all the way at the end. And this is the first time ever where we can have a Zuul'goth versus a Zuul'goth, which is kind of funny. This is probably the first time and the only time for a very long time that we'll ever actually see this. But yeah, it's Zuul'goth versus Zuul'goth. Of course, you cannot instant kill their Zuul'goth, even though they can instant kill you. Main reason for this is because of the invulnerable that it has, so do be wary of that. And even if this had invulnerable, this Zuul'goth actually does hit through invulnerable, even if you had like a Doom that had it. So do be wary of that. But yeah, you will not be able to instant kill him. However, that's not the reason why we're running him. The reason why we're running him is to deal with everything else that's on the team. So basically what we're going to do here is run a Mang. We then poke it with the other thing. He's dead. Do keep in mind, earlier on, you might want to run a little bit more with Mountain Crusher. Mountain Crusher goes a little bit quicker, but once you start getting deeper and deeper, it's more efficient to run a Mang there. We're also running with Enrage so that we can hit through things like Score Reduction, which that actually doesn't have. But there are various troops that will end up having Score Reduction, so you do want to make sure you have basically precaution against it. And that's why we're running the Enrage there. Another way to do it is, of course, with Titan, we have Inflict Stun whenever they hit us with a skull, so we'll be able to also do that as a decent alternative as well. So we'll go move that over, see if we can get this mana going all the way. We'll take that for the purple. We can then go get a nice amount of skulls. Unfortunately, though, after you took that skull, we might not really have much alignment here. We'll go to that just so he doesn't do anything. He just evaporates underneath the other skull, and it was kill him out. And pretty much as easy as that. And then you cycle through that and be good to go. As far as a cheaper team, I will go show that now, as obviously owning a Zuul'goth is pretty hard to do. Here's a team that uses no mythics and no legends. Well, technically Mang is a legend, but it's not really considered a legend in the sense that you get it ultra early. If you're in the mid-hundreds, you probably already have the weapon already. And if you don't, just keep putting your masteries in the brown and red, and you'll get it very, very soon. But anyways, back to the raids, and we'll go slot this into the team right over there. So this team right over here, and also all these will be in the description below, so you can just go copy paste them as well as in the first comment on the video pinned to the top. Anyways, as they always are. So right here we're running Mang with double tentacles into, of course, the Eldritch. Eldritch thing is just the raid troop that we end up getting this week. Nothing really too special about it. It gains a bunch of life and armor when it ends up securing a kill. Overall, not really too relevant other than, the normal multiplier that all of them have. So here, kind of similar premise. We're running with a Mang up front. Do keep in mind you could go down the Earth's Fury route if you're scared that you might end up dying to Zuul'goth. There's basically 2 ways that you could play around that. You can use Earth's Fury, so that it distributes your attack to all your allies, and you can go stealthy. If you want to go down the Mang route, but you're scared that your hero might die, and then your only damage source dies, and then you basically lose. If you have stealthy, he'll have to go for your last. You just have to be careful with his skull spam, as he still gets to create 12 skulls. But anyways, same kind of premise of what we were just doing. So we throw that down, we throw the immediate follow-up. I do have to be careful with those yellows so he doesn't get too much. Luckily, he did not go for it there. I almost feel like denying him, just in case. Yeah, I am actually going to take yellow here, even though we don't need it. Just going to be cautious about that Valraven there. So we'll take a brown right over there, take that skulls. So now we're pretty much in the clear. And now all we have to do is just kind of find skulls. That's the only slight problem with this too. Obviously, the entire team is oriented just behind finding skulls. So it can be a little bit hard to find those skulls sometimes. But it's really, really cheap. Nothing on this team too particularly hard to get. It's pretty much just the trip that you would automatically get from the event, and the only thing you'd really have to farm out for is the Wall of Tentacles, but it's an event key drop table at a pretty decent rate. Also, in however many packs that you end up buying for the event, you might have even already gotten a Wall of Tentacle or 2. So right here, we do have a barrier to deal with. I'm just going to throw a Mang on that for now, and then just kill it out with the other skull, and then we just need one more, and that will be matched. I think I'm going to try for a Sky Skull here, just hope we get lucky. Unfortunately, we do not, but he just gives it to us, and then we kill it out. And you basically just rinse and repeat that. Not the quickest of teams, but super cheap, and it'll get you through the entirety of the event. And as I mentioned, if you find you're dying too much on your hero, either go Earth's Fury if you have that weapon, or go Stealthy Hero class. Either of those will help to make sure that you don't die as quickly, as the Stealthy will make it so you can't be Zuul'goth targeted, and the Earth's Fury distributes attack to all your allies, and while that will be even slower than what we were just doing, it will make it so every single thing on your team has that similar damage rather than just your hero. But anyways, that's a raid for the week. Pretty straightforward, and it's pretty funny that we could do Zuul'goth versus Zuul'goth, so enjoy that while you can if you have a Zuul'goth, because we won't be seeing that anytime soon at all. Could be like another year before we see that happen, if even then. Anyways, as far as other stuff going on throughout this week, today we got ourselves a faction event for Warrens. One interesting thing about Warrens is you actually gain Arcane Lights, the green-yellow Arcane Trait Stone, for the final battle. It is the only delve in the entire game where you gain Arcanes for the final battle. This makes Arcane Lights theoretically the easiest to obtain Arcane in the entire game. So if you've been needing Arcanes, Lights, now's the time to go get them because you can get an absurd amount through this event. Like really, really ridiculously high amounts. As you're going through, you can pretty much get 4 times the multiplier, meaning you'll get 4 Arcanes every single time you end up progressing a floor in this place. So yeah, really, really high amounts to say the least. So if you've been needing Arcane Light, go get them because you can get like infinite just through that event this week. Even just through the free battles, you're going to get like 20, if not more. Anyways, Pet Rescue is going to be for Karakoth. This is just a Karakoth bonus. You're really almost never going to be using that bonus, but hey, still good to get it upgraded, especially if we don't have it maxed. And I believe it's somewhat newer, so most people probably don't have it maxed yet. Other than that, one of the worst hero classes in the entire game for this Thursday is Sorcerer hero class. It was somewhat okay before perks ever came into the game, like about 2 years ago or so. But ever since then, it's kind of been useless because it's a cast-oriented hero class that is outclassed by so many other classes at casting, which is kind of weird, but it's the position it's currently in. It's basically a casting-oriented hero class that is horrible at casting, which is a bad combination, which makes it completely useless. I believe it still does have the best first trait of any hero class in the game, and that it theoretically has a +1 purple. However, everything else about it is abysmal, and one of the worst few hero classes in the entire game as of currently. So not really that good, but because it's so bad, a lot of people probably don't have it max, so if nothing else, you can get some XP towards it. And this Friday, we have Invasions, and we'll go mention a team for that in a little bit once we go over Soulforge. So, Soulforge this week. Nothing really too noteworthy. One thing that's kind of interesting, if I'm not mistaken, this is either the first or second time, I think the first, that Sir Quentin and Captain McCall are actually in the Soulforge. Not necessarily worth going out of your way for. However, they are both a 50% mana start troop, with Sir Quentin being for Knights and the Captain McCall being for Rogues. They're probably not worth going out of your way for, but they're recent enough that you might want to consider them if you've been wanting them and you kind of missed them when they were out like a couple months ago. So somewhat worth considering in that regard. However, as legends are normally concerned, it is generally not worth crafting legends. But if you've been really wanting them, they're pretty much first time that they've been around, and they haven't been around much since their release, so worth considering if you want it for that reason. Autumn Imp, if you don't have, you can easily just ignore though, because that will be happening in about 2 months from now, from August to September. You'll be able to get Autumn Imp, so just wait till then. And other than that, all 4 of the mythics that are currently available are pretty bad. Though, oddly enough, the Vash'Dagon is actually in Soulforge, so if you don't happen to get him through event keys and you just want to go and just get him at the end, you theoretically could, so that's kind of funny. But other than that, for Vash'Dagon, for like that magic bonus off of Karakoth, if you're not going for a Zuul'goth, I probably wouldn't really bother with most else what's in here. As far as absolute best strength, it's technically Shabanu Vespera. However, I feel like she's hard countered by too much of the meta right now to really bother getting her. She's okay in the sense that she can loop a lot of extra turns, like absurdly high amounts, and she can be really good for all blue, purple, and yellow Guild War days. However, a lot of people run with Frost Mage, and she is pretty abysmal against Frost Mage in many situations. You can still carry cleanses and stuff in your team, but overall, I would say Vespera is still above average, but I'm not sure if you'd really go out of your way to get her compared to other options that exist within the game. But if you were to go for one for absolute strength, she is the most viable option. As far as the Soulforge for weapons, again, nothing really too noteworthy, though. Do keep in mind, if you want to get Garland Staff, you can get it only on Tuesday today. You can either get it through doing more packs into the faction event, or you can get it here. But you won't be able to get this thing for months, so if you do want to go get it just for the sake of getting it, you can. It's a rather useless weapon that you're pretty much never going to use. However, it is cheaper than quite a few other weapons, and you'll get it automatically if you go a little bit deeper into the faction event. Other than that, the Staff of Otherworlds, I'd highly advise getting via the Raids event and not buying it through Soulforge. It's a rather useless weapon as well, only being for a Karakoth bonus. We're getting another weapon somewhat similar to this on Friday that's going to be for Daemons that creates red and purple, if I'm not mistaken. This weapon will be much better than this staff. So if you're looking for getting one or the other, the one that's coming in through Invasions this weekend is superior to the Staff of Otherworlds. So honestly, I would advise getting both through both events so you can help your guild out. However, if you were to only choose one, the one that's coming out on Friday is superior to this one. So do be mindful of that, mostly because it's the Daemon focus. whereas that has a much wider range into simply a Karakoth focus due to multiple kingdoms being Daemon-based. There's pretty much 3 Daemon-based kingdoms. There's Blighted Lands, there's Karakoth, and there's Sin of Mirage, as well as a bunch of Daemons obviously mixed around. But there's 3 whole kingdoms basically based around it, whereas a Karakoth weapon is obviously only for Karakoth. So do be mindful of that. Anyways, other than that, most of these other weapons are pretty lackluster. This one is just for Mystics. It's another one of those standard kind of weapons. We're getting a lot of these lately. This is a useless doomed weapon. It's under the completely useless category, one that you'd pretty much completely ignore unless you were just getting it for completionist purposes. And that was it. So yeah, most noteworthy one that's coming is the one on Friday. And keep in mind that this one's only available today on Tuesday. And I would advise getting it through the actual faction event and not through SoulForge, so you could do either. Anyways, other than that, I believe that is everything. So let's start going over teams. Some of which we already kind of went over, but let's start all the way from the top. So, Raid High. We went over this one, but still to reiterate. Mang, Dark Troll, Eldritch Guardian, which is the raid troop for the week, as well as Zuul'goth. A little bit expensive due to the Zuul'goth, but obviously we have a cheaper alternative. First slot, you either go with Mountain Crusher or with eventually switch to Mang. For the earlier battles, while you're still one-shotting and everything, with your Eldritch, you probably want to go Mountain Crusher. Once you stop one-shotting, you probably want to switch to Mang, so you can go Mang to Eldritch, and just kind of use that for the rest of the time. It does use a lot of the same colors, but keep in mind that you will have enchant, so you'll still be able to get mana for everything. And also, once you get your Dark Troll rolling, once it past 6 turns passes, you'll automatically have 3 turns passes, because you'll have Titan to give it half mana start. But after 3 turns passes, you can get pretty much both of these back to full mana in a single cast, which ends up working out very, very well if you end up getting enough purples onto the board. So it ends up working out nice. Other than that, the really cheap one, obviously you can use Mang or Earth's Fury with a double wall of tentacles with the Eldritch Guardian. And the same kind of premise, you throw down Mang, you throw down Eldritch Guardian, and then you use Wall of Tentacles to mana generate between trying to take skulls for all your damage. And if you're finding you're dying too much with this, losing your only damage source, the 2 other alternatives is use Earth's Fury if you have that weapon, so that everything gains attack, though it will be a little bit slower, or use a Stealthy Hero class. So do be mindful if you use a Stealthy Hero class that you won't be having as much barrier and as much protection, so you will die a little bit easier. However, most Stealthy Hero classes do have 30% skull dodge. Not all of them, but a good number of them. So you will be able to synergize that and hopefully get lucky on skull dodges at least, if nothing else. Anyways, other than that, as far as Vash'Dagon, I did want to mention the Vash'Dagon team. He is used occasionally, mostly in like a blue-oriented area, like for Blue Tower of Doom or for Blue Delves, that can end up corresponding to it. And it's basically Mountain Crusher, Apothecary, High King, Irongut, and Vash'Dagon. It's one of the only few like Vash'Dagon like really viable teams, like things that I would actually say he's specifically meta in. And the main reason for that is normally in a High King, Irongut team like this, you would want to be having some kind of curse option, ideally. And this does have curse. It curses a random enemy whenever matching brown. And his team ends up getting so much brown through Brown Storm, from Brown Explosion, from Apothecary Brown Convert, that you're pretty much constantly gaining browns. And this will allow you to essentially automatically curse out the entire enemy team to make sure that High King Irongut can devour everything with his really high devour rate, which pretty much becomes 100% once it gets its first devour. So it ends up working out pretty well for things like Delves and Tower of Doom, whenever it's applicable for color, which is obviously blue. But yeah, it's probably the only actual team applicable or like team setup that's kind of most applicable for it. Otherwise, you'd pretty much only use it for Karakoth +1 magic for 10 stars. So do be mindful of that. Yeah, he's not completely useless, though he is underneath like the bottom worst half of Mythic. So, but at least he does give you that magic bonus, if nothing else, permanently if you're not getting Zuul'goth anytime soon. Other than that, we do have a faction event for Warden today. As far as things that you can run for that, you can actually just run Truffle the entire time, or Beatrix's if you prefer Beatrix. I'm always more of a King Gobtruffle person myself. So obviously we can't do like the perfect meta for it, but with the color restriction of green and yellow, we can go Leprechaun into Mountain Crusher and kind of do that combo, and just go double Truffle into destroying everything off of that. And I did it specifically with Warden, though you could do it with other options. Main reason for Warden is that Entangle, the Green Storm, and the Dispel, particularly the Green Storm Dispel. Green Storm helps you to loop a little bit better with Truffle more consistently, as well as give your Leprechaun things to explode, and the then the Dispel is mostly just to get rid of Submerge so that we don't have to end up dealing with it. Anyways, other than that, Pure Faction. Pure Faction for this place is just triple Luna into Bunnycorn, or if you really want to, you could even just go 4 times Luna. The main reason for running the Bunnycorn is mostly to create yellow, and then that gives you a bunch of explosions. Also gets a random charm, which of course if you're doing level 500 Pure Faction will be quite a bit of damage, given that they'll have hundreds of stats, so that will be hitting for hundreds of damage. So even though this thing normally wouldn't be considered that high of a damaging output, it will be in the context of what you'll be doing. So ends up working out pretty well. Unfortunately, Unfortunately, its gem spawn is really low. However, it does have a 75% mana start, so it gets rolling very, very quick. And those yellows are pretty valuable, given that you get an explosion every single time you get a random yellow, or whenever you get a yellow off the board, you'll end up getting explosion, which means that does stack with itself. So if you have 3 Lunas, that will be 3 explosions every single time you take a yellow off the board, which obviously is a lot. And with Bunnycorn, that's pretty much guaranteed if you end up casting them. So you get almost like a whole board clear as you cast Bunnycorn, and then you just keep spamming Luna and hope you get lucky with stats effects. You either want to be getting like lucky barriers and stuff for yourself and a chance, and hoping that you get unlucky ones for the enemy, like Freeze, like Death Mark, things that would be useful. Obviously, you have no control over it. It's a little bit of a luck-based one. Not as luck-based as some. You could theoretically kill it just with big AoEs, especially with potion effects. But overall, it is a little bit more of a luck-based faction compared to some. But overall, not the hardest of them, since you do have a nice full AoE option to run through it. Other than that, Sorcerer class for this Thursday, you will be restricted to Karakoth plus Daemon. The easiest way to deal with this is to use triple Wall of Tentacles, which is one of the other reasons why I said you might want to pull for multiple Wall of Tentacles this week off of Enki drop table. That's one of the only few things that is worth potentially going for, especially if you don't have any yet. And basically, you just run Black Manacles into triple of that, and you can run this the entire time. You can use pretty much any hero class you want. So I just use Sorcerer because, well, it's Sorcerer class event. Obviously, you can use whatever you want. Ideally, something that has half mana start, which Sorcerer doesn't even have, if I'm not mistaken, which is kind of funny because I don't believe they gave it Arcane Tree. Did they even give it that? Yeah, it doesn't even have Arcane Tree. Gosh, this hero class is so bad. It is so bad. But it doesn't even have half mana start. But obviously, you'll get more XP towards it. Or, you'll get more XP for whatever you use. But it is a Sorcerer class event after all. Anyways, but you basically do a triple Wall of Tentacle. One interesting aspect of triple Wall of Tentacle is given that it has a 10 mana cost, once you get it going, you have infinite mana, assuming they don't have like a Core Vash for the mana drain or anything. So you do have to be careful on that battle, the one with the Core Vash and Mana Core and all that. But on the ones that don't have any amount of mana drain, this ends up working out very, very well. Because all you have to do is just keep casting these and you'll have full mana. So basically, once you have 15 mana, this at full mana, and that one of these at least 5, you basically just cast Wall of Tentacle, then that Wall of Tentacle will have full because you just had 5+, and then you do it again because you just casted 2 of these, so that now has 10, and now you cast it again, and that thing already has full, and you basically just keep casting these, and since this is divisible by 5, you end up getting after 3 Tentacle casts. So basically, you go Wall of Tentacle, Wall of Tentacle, Wall of Tentacle, Black Manacle, rinse, repeat, wall, Black Manacle, and you basically just keep doing that until you win. You will be passing a lot of turns, obviously. However, it gives you all the mana you need without even touching a board once you get it rolling. And it gets rolling pretty quick once you have enchant and everything, too. It gets rolling even quicker. So, yeah, this ends up working out very well. So yeah, that's all you have to do for the entirety of the event. You don't even need to switch it out. Normally you would switch out of like a single AoE weapon, but for an event like this, when you have like triple Wall of Tentacles, you actually don't ever need to switch out. You can go all the way through the entire event if you so choose with this method, and it'll end up working out. And unfortunately, you can't use Zuul'goth for the later ones either, because Zuul'goth counts as a boss and not as a Daemon, even though he kind of looks like he should be one. But since he only counts as a boss, he does not count underneath the Karakoth Daemon category. So Wall of Tentacles is pretty much one of your only few options, because I think you have like 9 options, and pretty much all of them are bad. So triple Wall of Tentacles is pretty much your best way to go. And other than that, invasions. We do have a weekend-long invasion event. It is going to be a Daemon restriction. So you will be getting that new Daemon weapon that I mentioned earlier. They'll end up creating a bunch of red and purple alpha Daemons. You can end up using that instead of that weapon if you so choose. I just showed this with Reflection of Good. And basically, it's just spam Sir Mordain. If you don't have copies of him, you'll be able to get him through the event this Friday. And basically, he deals damage to an enemy, standard kind of thing. Gets to steal the 6 little mana thing, which I forget if that even works on towers. If I'm not mistaken, it actually doesn't, and it's kind of weird that he even has it. But he does get to do the standard amount of extra damage to towers, which in invasion events is very powerful. However, the most noteworthy thing about this thing is his very first trait, actually. He gets to become enraged when an enemy dies. This is very, very potent, because this stacks with the 5 times additional damage. So you're theoretically going to be doing 7.5 times additional damage. It ends up doing a lot of damage, because you're doing 7.5 times, not just to them, but you also hit through traits. So that one thing that has 75% score reduction, you just completely ignore. So not only do you not have to worry about the thing that has 75% score reduction, but you also get to hit everything for 7.5 times skull damage. Obviously, you just use this with a bunch of season medals, and you're pretty much just going to be good to go. Once you get your first kill, you just one-shot everything. And obviously, you'd want to focus his ability for getting that first kill, and then just one-shot everything with your Enraged Skull Poke, and should be pretty easy. And Mirror of Reflection is kind of just for a little bit extra support and mana accumulation, and Mirror Lift entirely for mana accumulation off Destroy. and Destroy is increasingly becoming better than Explosions as we get more magic into the game, as a lot of these things get they get full value for every single thing that they end up destroying, whereas Explosion gets half the value. So now that Destroys are starting to get beyond the half a board, once they start getting into the 30s, once they start getting into the 40s and beyond, they become increasingly more effective than Explosion, since Explosion only gets half the value off the board. So yeah, Destroys are starting to get up there, and as more magic comes in, more and more effective. So definitely worth considering as a mana accumulation. Plus, Daemons don't really have too many options for it anyways. But yeah, just a double Sermon Ordain. That's pretty much all you need. Just put any amount of support behind it and you'll be good to go. This thing just absolutely tears apart invasions, as you'll see this weekend. But anyways, guys, that's pretty much everything that I want to mention for the event week so far. If you still have any other questions, feel free to leave in the comment section below. Of course, everything as far as teams will also be mentioned below if you just simply want to go and copy paste them and use them for yourself throughout the week. Anyways, guys, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful week and stay safe out there. Goodbye, everyone.